morning and at night. Business took off, ended up, it was one of the original underground warehouse hardcore style gyms. And because of that, I started getting on all the major fitness websites, got in all the magazines, men's fitness, men's health. Men's fitness actually gave me my own column. So I wrote the hard gainer column for 10 years. So yeah, I mean, that's been it. And, been along the way. I started the podcast 8 years ago. I work with a lot of professional teams, athletes, entrepreneurs, speakers.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. As always, I have an incredible gentleman with me today that I'm very excited to get to talk to, learn from, and connect with. He's connected to a bunch of amazing people that I'm connected as well, but I would like to connect with more of them as well. So this is going to be great. But before I introduce him to you, though, I just want to give a big shout out to all of you who have been leaving comments, reviews, and likes on all the major podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, and to those who have been watching on YouTube as well. Thank you. And I want to ask you for a favor today. I want to ask you that if you get something out of this interview, if you get some type of value, some type of new insight and information, a skill, or the inspiration to go out and take action, to move closer towards your goals and achieving one of your freedoms, I want to ask you to please share this episode with 10 people. Share it on social media, post the link on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Share with 10 people, since this is how we grow. This is how we're able to share our message and motivate, inspire, and bless other men to change their lives and achieve true freedom. So today I have Jason Ferruggia, and he's one of the best strength training coaches in the world. He has a podcast called Renegade Radio that has over 3 million downloads. He's connected to a bunch of very successful people.
6. I don't know where that must be a really old number.
6 million downloads. Sorry, not 3. 6 million downloads. And very awesome guy. So man, I'm very excited to have you. Thank you very much for being here. And you are welcome, Jason.
My pleasure, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So man, the first thing that I do with my guests is I tell them to walk us through their entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
I started when I was 19 years old. I started interning in the school weight room, and I started training people. I think the next summer, I was going to school and I got tuberculosis, so I almost died. If I didn't get to the hospital that day, I would have died. My lungs would have filled up and I would have drowned. So I was home from school for a semester. I studied, got a bunch of certifications, started training people that summer. Business blew up. I was making 6 figures at the time. I was still going to college, and that was it. I just decided, I transferred back home, went to school during the day, trained people in the morning and at night. Business took off, ended up, it was one of the original underground warehouse hardcore style gyms. And because of that, I started getting on all the major fitness websites, got in all the magazines, men's fitness, men's health. Men's fitness actually gave me my own column. So I wrote the hard gainer column for 10 years. So yeah, I mean, that's been it. And, been along the way. I started the podcast 8 years ago. I work with a lot of professional teams, athletes, entrepreneurs, speakers, Hollywood stars. I don't know, probably more than 75 seconds. But.
Nice. So how old are you right now, man? I'm just curious.
47.
Damn, I'm so excited, man, to be 47. So I come from a culture, like Mexican culture, that by the time you're 40, you're pretty much done.
Yep.
Right. So
yeah.
Like most people, like with some of my uncles, they're like 35 and they're done, right? Like they have the belly, they get home and watch TV, and wow. Their energy sucks. Like you're around them and you don't even know that you're around them. And that's where I grew up with. But now, like, connecting with over 100, pretty successful entrepreneurs who are 30, 40, 50, and even some of them 60-year-olds, and seeing how like look amazing. like just makes me want to take care of myself and love myself and put myself first,
Oh yeah,
always. So yeah, that's amazing, man. So how do you feel at 47?
great, better than I ever felt.
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
and so why is that?
Because all the things you just said, I take care of myself. My training's dialed in, my nutrition's dialed in, my sleep's dialed in, stress management, meditating, breathing, putting myself around the right people, having the daily non-negotiables, the habits, um, everything. It's a culmination of all the things.
Yeah, 100%. So, man, you found your calling at a very early age, right? Like at 19, you started you going to the gym. Then you started trying to train people. So you started making six figures 1 year after that at 20.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you found your calling, what you were going to do for the rest of your life, because you're still helping people with this. I imagine that now at a higher level, way higher level. So what got you into, like fitness and training and strength training and all of that?
Just being a fat kid and then being a skinny fat kid, being weak, being not the most athletic kid, getting picked on in school, getting bullied, all those things. And then I grew up watching superheroes on Saturday morning and professional wrestling on Saturday morning. And I was like, man, I want to be like one of these larger than life characters. Complete opposite of who I was, introverted, insecure, shy, quiet, no confidence. And that's who I wanted to become. And just by happenstance, by luck, my cousin Christine started dating a professional wrestler in probably like I was 12, 13 at the time. Now he wasn't with WWF, WWE, but he was in a smaller federation, but he was still huge. He was like 6'4", 250 pounds. I'm around him all the time. And so it was cool. So that really got me ramped up into training. And then it just became, my obsession. So I was, majoring in exercise science and reading everything I could, getting every certification I could, interning with people, paying anyone I could to learn. And, I saw what it did for my confidence. And I wanted, to help other men, get that same kind of impact and that confidence boost. And so I trained a lot of athletes for years, helped, countless athletes get scholarships and then go pro. And so those were the early days. Yeah.
So then you were never like this, super disciplined person who worked out and all of that. You became that, right?
Yeah.
So like me, for some reason, man, I've had abs since I was like 11 years of age, right? And it was thanks to the fundamental fear that everyone has, which is not being good enough, right?
Mm.
Like I was driven by that. I didn't feel good
Oh,
enough,
okay.
and
Yeah.
I've been counting my calories till this day. I'm 21 right now, for like 10 years since I was 11. I started counting my calories since I was
Wow.
11.
It's amazing.
And it like I was driven by not being good enough, and as well as wanting to be more, right? Because I felt like I was not being good enough. Right now, I know that I'm good enough, and everything that I do is just to be more, because that's the purpose of life, right? Impact, growth, contribution, purpose. But now I know that I'm not driven by that fear, by that insecurity.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like where was I going with this? So where I was going with this, so like lack of confidence, right?
Mm.
So like tell me where did this lack of confidence came from for you?
It's hard to say. I mean, growing up, my parents used to fight every single night of the week. They would scream. There would be bottles breaking, doors slamming, and all kinds of things crashing. My relationship with my parents, obviously that impacts all of us. Those formative years, those first 7 years of your life, and up until the time you're 18 or whatever. Like all that's really powerful. So a lot of that, and like I said, just being fat and weak, and then skinny fat and not a great athlete. All those things really add up. So I built myself up. Like when I graduated high school, I was the same height I am now. Although actually somehow I'm taller. I got taller in the last few years. I don't even know how that happened. Like Bedros and I used to be the same height, and now I'm taller than him. Same thing with a lot of my friends. I don't know what happened. But anyway, where's I going with that? So yeah. So I had this lack of confidence. So I built up myself, right? So I graduated high school, 6 feet tall, 147 pounds. Now, I've been training for 5 years and I was only 147 pounds. So I obviously didn't have good genetics, wasn't working out for me. So I was like, man, I really got to figure out how to do this the right way. Built myself up to 230 pounds, got all the tattoos and everything. So it was like this suit of armor and kind of like, I don't know, a disguise or whatever.
Yeah.
That way I'm completely the opposite of who I was for all those years prior. But Man, it took till like, in my mid 30s, late 30s, where I really started addressing some of the other things. Like, yeah, I mean, training's great. Getting jacked, getting strong, great. Definitely improves your self-confidence. There's a lot of life lessons you'll learn in the gym. I mean, Arnold's talked about that forever. The Rock talks about it. Anyone who's serious about training talks about the life lessons you learn in the gym. But there's other things, you reach a point where it's like, man, there's other levels to this, you gotta address some other deep-seated stuff from childhood, or false narratives, or self-limiting beliefs that maybe you've just ignored. And so it wasn't really until my mid late 30s that I started addressing more of that, and that made a bigger change for me than anything else.
Same with me, man. And I've had the privilege to be able to like work on myself and address, like the trauma that I went through
Yeah.
since from a very early age. Like the past 3 years, I've been all the money that I ever got in the past 3 years, I invested it into myself, into like coaches,
Nice.
courses, and everything. So I've been able to like
Amazing.
do some of the internal work to get rid of that. And like there was a ton of work that I had to do. Therefore, and I would love to, hear your experience, but there were four major limiting beliefs that I had, right? The first one is the one that everyone has, which is not feeling good enough, feeling unworthy, right? Or fundamentally flawed. That's how I felt. I felt fundamentally flawed. That's what drove me to want to count my calories and work out. That's what drove me to want to take dick pills. That's what drove me to, taking SARMs and steroids at like 17 and 16, because I didn't feel good enough, right? I valued significance instead of health, right? The second limiting belief, that I found was breaking the rules. So like there was like a set of rules that were told or untold with my family, right? Like a set of rules of how things are supposed to be done. Like things
Right.
are supposed to be done this way. And, I didn't do them this way. And there was a guilt and shame that I felt, like not having a kid at a young age or not going to college and all of that. And, when you have that limiting belief that like things are supposed to be done in a certain way and you break those rules, then how do you expect to be successful if you unconsciously believe that you betrayed the people who raised you, who supported you, and who loved you, right? You're a bad person, so you don't deserve success. The third limiting belief that I found is being a burden, right? Like I told you, I was like, my mom had me at 15 years of age. I was a burden to her, or at least that's how I was treated. That was my experience, right? She probably loved me, but that was my experience of it. I was a burden. So like if you grew up with that limiting belief, you grew up like, and you want to get successful. Now you're all grown up, you're an adult, you're trying to get successful, but you unconsciously believe that the bigger you get, the bigger of a burden you will be. So you hold yourself back. And the fourth limited belief, which it still comes, up to like this date, is shining. Like shining is bad. So for example, the other day I was like without shirtless, around my family, and my grandma yelled at me because, apparently I make other people feel uncomfortable and insecure, right? Or if the other day I was talking about my relationship and how my relationship with my wife was amazing, and she said, do not talk about that because nobody cares. And the other day I was talking about how business is going so well, and she says that she told me to shut up because, most people are not there. So like shining is bad, right? And if you grow up with that limiting belief and then you're trying to like shine your light on the world, you think it's bad. So therefore you hold yourself back. So like
that's one of the worst ones. That's horrible.
yeah, exactly, right? So like there was a ton of internal work that I did, and like I'm excited to hear about your experience, man.
Specifically, what do you mean?
Like the internal work that you did to like get over like your childhood trauma. You mentioned how like there was always like fighting and yelling at home and stuff. So yeah, about that.
Yeah, I think it's just, you kind of addressed it there. It's the first thing is you have to have that awareness. So we all go through different, maybe you go 20 years without realizing it, or you go 36 years or 42 or 57, or some people never even address it. They never really realize it. It's just, that's the way I am. That's the way things always are. That's the way my family is. And that's it, and they never evolve. They never change. But at some point you have this awakening. So it was, a combination of, I think, reading a few different books, going to a couple different events, being around the right people, and really disassociating myself from the wrong people, like seeking out the kind of people I want to be around. And so I just kind of had this light bulb go off, like, oh man, I didn't even realize that the people that I spend the most time with are actually negative, and they complain a lot, or they gossip, or they say it must be nice, and they talk about other people. And I didn't realize that I personally was doing that as much, and that I had this glass ceiling that was self-imposed on me. And so, you start to address all these things like, wow, but I built myself up, I gained 80 pounds, but I still am really insecure in certain situations. Like I'm more secure and more confident in these situations, but over here, I'm still really insecure and really lacking confidence. And so, it's just having that awareness and then being honest with yourself and starting to, one by one address those things. Okay, is this really who I want to be? Do I want to live like this? And then the more you're around those kind of people, like Bedros is one of my closest friends, and I have a lot of friends who are, at that level. The more time you spend with them, you just learn by osmosis. You're like, oh, I see the way he treats people. I see the way he talks to the waiter, or I see the way he takes a compliment, or whatever it is. And then you're like, okay, I want to do that. And when you're around people who are living at that level, the cool thing is you might not see each other for a few weeks or a few months. Then when you see each other, somehow that person is better than last time. Whereas your old drinking buddies from when you were a kid, they're like, they're always the same. But like you notice, oh wow, I could see how he improved that. I see how he's pushing himself out of his comfort zone there. I see how he's doing this that he never used to, or maybe he had a bad habit that he's eradicated and gotten rid of, and it's like, so you're always just learning by being in that circle. So, being around people, it's like a cliche about the 5 people you spend the most time, but it is super important. And so, yeah, I think that really sums it up. It's just, having that awareness and then addressing one by one, which of these things do I want to tackle? So, and then as far as takeaways, what I did was, first, I moved across the country. I moved from New Jersey to LA. And so I moved as far as I could in the United States, away from my background, my family, my friends, whatever. I just had to get out and reinvent myself, right? So I think it's a really good idea to reinvent yourself. You could evolve only so much in the town you grew up in, around the same people, whatever. They see you a certain way. There's a level you can get to, and then you got to move on. You got to move out. You got to go somewhere else. You can come back, but you're going to have to be set free and go somewhere else and reinvent yourself. Leave that baggage behind. There are, a lot of just environment triggers behavior. So there's going to be a lot of things like that you just can't escape until you get out. So I went out there with the sole purpose of reinventing myself. Let me address all these things that I just mentioned, and let me push myself. So I started taking improv classes, took improv for 2 or 3 years at Second City, which would be probably one of the number one recommendations I would give to anyone taking improv. I took stand-up comedy classes. I started pushing myself to speak more. And then I wanted to build a network. So now people know me as the super connector and the nucleus. And what I did when I got to Cali, I knew 3 people. I had 3 numbers in my phone of people that I knew. And after 10 years, I had 300 numbers. And they called me the mayor of Santa Monica. Like, I knew everybody. And if you came over my house for a Super Bowl party or a UFC, you'd be like, holy shit, like Hollywood stars, UFC, NFL players, authors of my favorite books, just WWE superstars. It was like a who's who. And again, for a kid who grew up, not the coolest kid, didn't have a ton of friends, it gives me goosebumps now to even think about that and to look around. And I cultivated that by taking, but you have to be intentional about it. I didn't just go out there and say, well, let's see what happens. I'm 3,000 miles away. It's like, no, I'm here for a mission, for a purpose.
Yeah.
So I push myself. So every day I'm going to talk to more people. I'm going to give compliments. I'm going to engage people. I'm going to get numbers from other people, like just out and about. Like my wife used to joke around, like, man, how many times are you going to come home with a new guy's number? Like I would just always go out and be like, because guys don't do that, right? Like if you're talking somewhere and you meet someone, you connect, you have a bunch of stuff in common. It's like, guys don't normally say, hey, give me your number, let's hang out, because it's uncomfortable, it's weird or whatever. But I started doing that and my phone was just full. And then what happens is, and of course, along the journey, I'm learning more about things that you're always going to be indispensable, right? So no matter what happens to the world or the economy, all human beings will always pay for and value. They'll want a better body. So I already know a ton about fitness. They'll want better relationships, and they'll want to know how to make more money. I know an inordinate amount about those 3 things. Everything else, not so much, unless it's old school hip hop or something. Then I could teach a college course. But people will always want to know those 3 things. So then you're always indispensable, because people will always. So I would be, hanging out in LA and just get a random text from a really well-known famous friend of mine, like, hey, so-and-so is going to be in town. Can you meet up with them? I told them, everybody. You have tons of good advice. Maybe you could help them with their business. You could connect them with somebody else, whatever it might be. So then you just become like this indispensable, like you're.
Sorry for the interruption. If you're an aspiring, established coach, course creator, author, and speaker, I want to extend an invitation to check out my free training on the podcast Cloak Track Framework by clicking on the link in the description of this podcast. On this training, you're going to learn how combining podcasting with a rare concept that very few people know about called the cloak track can help you build a multi-million-dollar network of successful people who can become your clients, put you in front of hundreds of your ideal clients with your message, coaching, courses, and books, help you become a best-selling author, get you booked to speak on stages, or even making an extra $237,600 in the next 6 months. Click on the link of the description of this podcast to learn about the 4 simple steps to make this work. Step number 1 is alignment. Aligning who you're trying to be, what you're trying to do, your goals and purpose with building your podcast so that podcasting is a vehicle that helps you achieve your goals. Step number 2 is leveraging the cloak track to find an unlimited supply of your ideal podcast guest. Step number 3 is leveraging the cloak track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4 is the content machine, which is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. These are the 4 steps to making the podcast cloak track framework work, and I'm not going to hold anything back on this training. So click on the link in the description of this podcast, go and check it out. And once you've done that, if you feel like this would help, we also have a complimentary, free, absolutely free alignment call to get you started and show you exactly how to implement everything. Get access to the training right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
Like a switchboard, like parceling out contacts and goodwill and information, So that was really my mission there. And I would say it worked out pretty well. And then trying to think, there was another part of the story. But yeah, I mean, that basically, kind of sums it up. I mean, like you said at the beginning, it's a never ending journey. That was a 10-year journey. And but it doesn't end. Every day is a battle. You wake up and fight the new battle every day.
Nice. Man, I love the super connector thing, right?
Yeah.
Because man, there's nothing that, if you want to be something, if you want to do something, if you want to have something, there's probably someone out there that already is the type of person that you want to be, that is already doing the type of things that you want to do, and that has the life that you want to have. And the fastest way for you to get there is through connecting with them, right?
Yeah.
So I love the super connector idea because I've been networking for the past 6 months. And this is literally helping me achieve goals that I thought were going to take me 10 years to achieve in one year. Like building my business to $1 million per year. Speaking on stage, I've gotten invited to speak on 4 stages in the past 2 months. Throwing my own events. I have a network now of over 100 successful entrepreneurs that have agreed to go speak at my event. And I thought I was going to be doing that, that seemed to be very far away. And through connecting with people and surrounding myself with these kinds of people, opportunities, ideas, I'm doing that this year.
Wow.
So,
awesome.
The idea of being a super connector, is I like it, right? I'm turned on by that.
Yeah.
But so talk to me a little bit about that, man.
So what I would say is, you got to make that really, for me, I made that my number 1 priority, is just building relationships. So when you wake up in the morning and, a lot of people say, oh, what's my purpose? What's my passion? So if you don't have it yet, if you haven't found it yet, and that's fine. Some people don't find it till they're 50. It doesn't really matter, but make it if you leave the house in the morning and Alex, you and I meet in an elevator or something, I don't have to know anything about you. I know that you have something you're insecure about, something you're unhappy about, something you're struggling with. We all have that. That's human beings. Every one of us has that, right? So I can give you the gift of engagement. I can give you the gift of being fully present instead of sitting there in the elevator, doing this like everybody does, looking at my phone. I could say, hey man, maybe I'll notice something about you. That's one of the things I'll do, is just notice something. Oh, is there something I can comment on? Maybe you have a shirt on that says something that's one of my favorite teams or bands, or maybe you have shoes. I'm a sneakerhead. I can comment on your sneakers, or I could just at least look you in the eye. People barely even do that anymore, give you a nod, say what's up, anything. Engage, I'm going to look for some way to engage somebody, especially at the beginning, 10, 12 years ago when I was first starting this and I was horrible at it. Let me always work on those people skills. Let me give compliments. Let me ask questions. Let me read books on this. So, reading books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Captivate, and Fascinate, and 92 Ways to Talk to Anyone. Really essential reading. And then throughout your day, so in business, for example, you might have things that you're always tracking. If not, how are you going to make any money, right? So you'd have, your KPI, your ROI, all these things, right? If you go to the gym, you have your training journal and you squatted 135 for 5. Okay, I want to squat 135 for 6 next week, or 140 for 5, whatever it is. You're always trying to, progressive overload, set PRs. So I wanted to set PRs in, if anyone doesn't know, if they're not a meathead, it's personal records. So I wanted to set PRs each day. At the end of each day, like, okay, how many people did I engage today? How many people did I make smile? How many compliments did I give? Because all that was really uncomfortable for me to do because I had never really, again, so let me set those PRs, let me track those at the end of the night, write it in my journal. Then I would make sure that I always had social stuff in my schedule. Like if I showed you my calendar, it's always full, like coffee this day, dinner this day, whatever. And I'm always doing stuff. And then I got to the point where, okay, now I have a bigger network and a bigger network. So then I decided, okay, let me push myself to be confident enough that if we're hanging out with people who are kind of, high status people like Bedros or something, I'm going to be the one who's going to say, hey, let's go here to eat. Hey, let's go here. If a bunch of us are hanging out at a bar and everyone's like, where should we go? What should we do? I'll go, oh, we'll go down the street to O'Brien's, whatever. Or I reach out and I make the plans. I say, hey, Pearl Jam's in town, May 18th. We're all going to go. I'll grab tickets. You good with that? Yeah, cool. So just making plans. And then, like I said, taking improv classes is huge. Anything that you can do to build your confidence and build your people skills and always be working on it. I mentioned Bedros a lot because he's a good friend of mine, but one of the things that he does is he makes everyone feel, and any book you read about this kind of stuff, they'll talk about Arnold, they'll talk about Oprah, they'll talk about Bill Clinton. The number one skill anyone can have is they make other people feel important. And I've gotten to work with Arnold and spend time with Arnold. So he makes people feel important. A lot of high level people do that. Bedros does that incredibly well, where if you're hanging out in a room with Bedros and 30 people, you might not know he probably makes more money than anyone there, but you might think he only makes 60 grand just by the way he acts, and he makes you feel special and he asks you questions. And so that's the kind of thing, because people really don't care about you. They care about themselves. Like in 60% of conversation, people will talk about themselves. So the more I could get you to talk about yourself, if I just met you at a party, I'd be like, oh, tell me more about that. That's amazing. How'd you come up with that? That's great. Oh my God, really? Yo, dude, how did you even figure that out? Like if you just ask more questions, and I'll get text messages sometimes from friends where they're like, hey, can you meet up with this guy? And they'll be like, oh, I heard you had a great conversation with whoever. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't say a word. All I did was ask questions, but that's what's so powerful is like, and it takes a lot. It takes a lack of ego to do that, because the more you get in circles of kind of high status people, the more you're like, you want to be like, well, I do this and I make this much money. And yeah, exactly. And it's like, nah, that doesn't work. You want to make other people feel impressive, important, special, smart, all those things. That's why reading some of those books is really important. And again, just being around those people and learning by osmosis, learning what they do. Walter Payton, he was way before your time, but he was the greatest running back of all time. Some people might argue that, but I would say they're wrong. But anyway, Walter Payton once famously said, if you're good, you tell everyone. If you're great, they tell you. Meaning be humble, don't brag so much, don't talk about yourself so much. So yeah, and then again, just focusing on other people. Oh, so my point was this: if you leave the house in the morning, you're like, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, your purpose is to make other people feel special. Like that could change. Like the state of the world right now is fucked. Like it's a disaster. Nobody's going to argue that. Even the most optimistic person is like, this is some weird scene. Like we've never seen this in our lifetime. You know what's going on right now. So that everyone's struggling. Everyone's got some kind of anxiety. So like I said, if I see you in the elevator, the gift I can give you is a smile, a compliment, a joke, engage you, whatever. People crave and miss human connection, especially after the last 2 years. A lot of people have been in their house for a year and a half, a year, whatever it is. So that's super important. So you can always do that. Just leave the house in the morning until you figure out what your career, what your purpose is. Make other people feel special. Booker T. Washington said, those who do the most for others are those who feel the best. Like if you just focus on other people. I heard my friend Craig Ballantyne recently say that Grant Cardone taught him that the day he said, I'm going to stop doing things for me and I'm going to start doing everything for everyone else, is the day his life got exponentially better. So, I mean, there's a lot to it. I could keep going, but those are some of the things that come to mind.
I love them, man. So I've met a lot of people that want to start a podcast, but who are afraid, right? Because they think that they won't have anything to say. They think that they don't know how to interview, but it's really not about you, right? It's about the person that you're interviewing. And then actually, like, the more, like, you don't have to do any of the talking. Like you just have to get the other person to do every all of the talking. And the more other people talk about them, the more they like you, right? The more interested that you are, the more interesting that you appear, right?
Yeah.
So And yeah, man, it's amazing. So I invested, in a 25K program to like learn everything that you're talking about, and it was really cool, right? Like, it's like life changing. So like everyone craves the same thing, right? Like validation, approval, acceptance. They're trying to like make themselves seen and known, and they're trying to impress. And the more you embrace that and you give that to people, the more they like you, right? Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you were talking with Bedros. So yeah, that's some great stuff, man. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So let's see. I want to talk about getting it. Man, is there anything else that you're really passionate about other than like getting fit and strong and taking care of yourself and stuff like that?
Just those things that we talked about there, and just every day you got to build your self confidence. Even The Rock or someone like that you think is the most confident person in the world. Everybody has stuff that they lack confidence about, or like we said, we have these self limiting beliefs. We may still have that voice from childhood, that self narrative. So every day, I think you have to take steps to build your self confidence, to build your self esteem. If you're not doing that, you're going to slip back, right? Like if you don't go to the gym, you're going to get fatter and smaller and weaker. If you don't do those things, you don't get to a point and just stay there. You have to continually work on that. So I think you have to have your daily routines, your daily non-negotiables. You need to create discipline. Like the saying goes, discipline equals freedom. And then at the end of the day, if you could check those boxes, like, did I train? Did I stick to my diet with no cheat meals? Whatever your non-negotiables are, these are some that I use in my coaching program, and these are mine. So did I train? Did I stick to my diet? Did I take a cold shower? Did I read 10 pages of a book? Did I get 10,000 steps? And did I meditate for 10 minutes? So those things keep me feeling like those are my savage six, right? Like I'm fucking on fire. And if I'm doing those things, if I don't do those things, I feel like I let myself down. I'm disappointed a little bit. So, it's a very powerful thing just to keep a journal and just write each day. Maybe it's 3 things, maybe it's 5 things, whatever. I'm going to do these things. And at the end of the day, did you do them? Did you keep that promise to yourself? Because if you can't keep a promise to yourself, how are you going to keep a promise to anybody else? How are you going to lead? So do those things, build your self-esteem, and always push yourself every single day. Like, just because I did all that and built up this huge network doesn't mean I'm great at it. Some people might think I'm great at it, but I always want to be better. There's so many areas where I'm like, oh man, I'm horrible at that. I got to get better at that. That's got to this level, but I know it should go to this level. So every day, I think just having that mindset of how do we get a little bit better? How do we push ourselves? How do we have those daily non-negotiables? Keep those promises to yourself to build your self-esteem, and then push yourself in terms of leadership too, right? Like if you took a poll of everyone on earth and said, hey, are you a leader, or do you want to be a leader? A lot of people, I think, would probably say no to the first question. They're not a leader. But if given the choice, I think most people would say, yeah, I'd like to be known as a good leader. Who wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah.
And even if you said no, I think it's a false narrative or a self-limiting belief or something that you're saying no because you're insecure, because you don't believe in yourself. Most people deep down would want to be thought of as a leader. So do all the things that you need to do. Read a bunch of leadership books, but push yourself. Leadership doesn't mean you're going to lead an army into war. It might just mean, like I said, you're out at a bar with 5 friends, and everyone's going, where should we go? Where should we go? Where should we go? And you go, oh, we're going to this bar. Like, that's leadership right there. If your wife or your husband or your friend or a bunch of friends go, what do you want for dinner? Don't go, I don't know. What do you want for dinner? Go, oh, let's get steak. Like little things like that, making faster decisions, that builds your leadership skills, right? Like that. So just being aware of those things. It's not this bit, like we build it up to be this huge thing, but it's just really all success, as you know, is just, the amalgamation of just a lot of little small things just done repeatedly over and over again. I mean, you could always look at any sports analogy, right? Like there's not a lot of fancy things. It's like, do the basics, with baseball, like, one of the terminologies, play small ball, like things like that. You just do the basics over and over and over again. And that's how you actually get good at anything.
Yeah. And so going back to your point, like people, if there's someone out there who feels like they don't have a purpose, well, it's very simple. Like the purpose for life for every human being is growth and contribution. That's it. So growing, right? Getting better and contributing to other human beings, like making them feel good, making them feel important. And it's just to, like you said, always trying to become better, right? Trying to be more today than you were yesterday, trying to be more tomorrow than you were today, and just trying to be a growing, expanding, evolving, and compounding human being. I think that's what, purpose of life for any human being who doesn't have, like a quote unquote purpose should focus on, just growing and growing and growing and contributing. And through that journey, they'll find whatever it is that they are, that their true purpose is. So
Exactly. Yep.
and
And then just be kind to yourself. Like, don't compare yourself to other people. It's really hard to do, but there's the famous quote, comparison is the thief of joy. You're
yeah,
better off, like, the person you should compare yourself to is the person in that notebook that I said, like, did I do these things today? Did I do them a little better than yesterday? Awesome, cool. It's not, oh, I gotta be better than Brad Pitt or better than whoever. Like, it's like, no, just do your thing. Don't worry about what someone's doing on social media or whatever. Did you get better than you were yesterday? And if you didn't, that's okay. Because if you go to the gym, you don't set a PR every single day. If some of those days that suck, like, you're just
yeah,
weak, and like, but as long as over time, you're not going to go linearly up, but you might go up, you flatline a little bit, you go up, flatline a little bit, a couple days you stumble. But the thing about when you stumble is, when you're first on this journey, when you're stumbling, shit, that might snowball into 3 weeks. I'm down and out. I'm mentally beating myself up. I screwed up on my diet. Screw it. I'm just going to eat junk for another week or so. The victory is that downtime is smaller. So it goes from 3 weeks to a week. And then I'm back on track. Then it goes from a week to 3 days. And then it maybe is the same day. Like, you have something happen to you in the morning and you're over it by lunchtime and you're moving on. Like, it's just, those are all small wins,
yeah. I like that. So shortening your recovery time, right?
Yeah.
I've experienced that this couple of years. Like, I would every single week, man. Like, I would start on Monday on fire, like, just ready to go, and then by Wednesday I will be full of doubts and full of fear and frustration and overwhelmed. And then boom, I would like follow the horse Thursday and Friday, and then would by Saturday, and then on Sunday I would like plan my week, and then I would start the week again, and then I would fall, right? And then sometimes I would follow the horse for like 2 weeks, and then that turned into 1 week, and then that turned into 3 days, and then that turned into 1 day. And then right now, like, I've learned how to like handle my own emotions, and it's like snippets of negativity and overwhelm and frustration and doubt, and I can quickly get over it. So how did you learn that? How did you learn to like shorten your recovery time?
I think that's just experience.
Experience,
Yeah, it's just experience. Just all the things I mentioned before, but reading the right books, going to the right events, paying to get in the room, be around those people, and then being around those people. And then, but I think if tracking things though is huge too. Like, journaling is huge. Like, you're not, like, again, in your business, if you're not tracking things, you're probably not growing. In the gym, if you're not tracking things, you're not growing. So, having that, knowing how to do that from the gym, like I said, you learn so many life lessons from the gym, knowing how to do that from growing a business. Then once you want to change things in your personal development, it becomes easy. Just apply the same lessons,
So I actually track my emotions, man. So I have this big ass calendar by Jesse Itzler. That's how it's called, big ass calendar. Okay. And I don't know if you've ever seen like a a cone with the vibrational frequencies and the emotions. Like, it's colored, with different colors. Well, I track my emotions on that calendar, right? And there's a color for each emotion. And last year, out of every 30 days of the month, I would spend 28 of those days, either red, purple, orange, right? Like negativity, anger, frustration, doubt, fear, overwhelm. 28 days out of every 30 days of the month, man, were spent like that. And then I started working, with some spiritual coaches like Peter Sage and Howard Falco and stuff like that. And like this year, I started getting way better. So like at the beginning of the year, 20 days out of the 30 days were better, right? And then in February and March, about 10 days. And then right now, I have like snippets here and there of little purple that come up. But like most of my days are now colored green, which is positive, and blue, which is on fire.
Awesome. Yeah.
So it's really cool, man. But yeah, so man, tell me a little bit about the athletic greens. I take greens every single day. So yeah, tell me why you do it and what is that about?
Oh yeah, I just think it's the best all-in-one supplement. I've been using it for at least 10 years now. I got to know Chris at the beginning when they founded the company, and just to see his success has been amazing. So I think it's just a great insurance policy. Give vitamins, minerals, superfoods, digestive enzymes, probiotics, mushrooms, all kinds of stuff in there. It's super simple. Take it when you travel. So yeah, it's always been a kind of daily thing for me.
Awesome. So then, yeah, okay. Well, I end my interviews with 5 questions, but before I start asking those 5 questions, I want to ask about supplementation, right? Like, yeah, I don't know what to ask
about supplements.
Yeah.
I think I don't think you need supplements. I think people rush to supplements before they get their diet. You got to make sure your training's in check, your diet's in check, and your sleep's in check.
Yeah.
Those three things will do most of it. Supplements are going to give you a 5% benefit, and I would look towards supplements that if you've gotten blood work and you're deficient, like most people are deficient in magnesium, so that's one of the first things I recommend. A lot of people are deficient in vitamin D, so that's one of the keys. Vitamin D and magnesium are probably my top two, and then a good quality like as long as you're eating it, if you're eating enough sodium, or if you need to supplement with something like Element or something like that, a good electrolyte. What else? What else do I like? And then if you can't eat enough protein, a good protein powder is fine. Creatine is the most studied supplement there is. So I think everyone should take creatine. There's heart benefits, there's brain benefits, and of course there's performance benefits. So creatine's good. There's one other one. Why am I drawing a blank on what else? Iodine. Iodine is most people don't know about iodine or take iodine, but it's really good for your immune system and it's really good for your thyroid. A lot of people have thyroid issues. They might notice their hands and feet are cold, or their metabolism's just slow. They can't lose fat. They get sick all the time. So just supplementing with a few droppers of iodine a day could be really beneficial as well.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for that advice. I'm gonna start taking creatine, man. Like I said, I'm not taking anything right now,
Okay.
just because of like my trauma of going through, like diving into taking SARMs. You know what SARMs are?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I dove into like SARMs, and then I like right off the bat, I started taking like the dosage that I was like 17 or like, yeah, very stupid. But I started taking like the dosage that you're supposed to be taking once you have like 6 to 9 months taking it. I
Okay.
just dove into that and I almost freaking died, man. Like I remember that I couldn't sleep at night. Like my heart was, like racing, and I fell into like a very dark depression. It was really bad.
Wow.
But yeah, and it was just because I wanted to, chase significance instead of
Yeah.
like health.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right, man. So the first question is, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could?
No one's judging you as much as you think they are.
No
That's all
one's
I need.
judging you as much as you think they are.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like people are too busy to even get to like
Yeah.
to or don't care enough to give an opinion about themselves because they're too busy thinking and worrying about what other
Exactly.
people are thinking of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. The second question is mindset. So what is a mindset shift that you've had that you think has contributed to your success?
Shifting from internal focus to external focus. Like I said before, like if you focus on what can you do for other people, how can you help other people, because we're all like, oh, how can I do this? How can I make more money? How can I get bigger? How can I overcome all my stuff? Which is all important. We got to work on that. But if you're always focused on yourself, you will always be miserable.
Yeah.
Always be miserable. You got to focus on other people.
Yeah. Going from egocentric to ethnocentric.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The mindset map. So do you have any tactic, strategy, piece of advice to like help people gain clarity?
Gain clarity in on what?
Yeah, so a lot of people lack clarity, right? Or they may want more clarity of who they are, what they want, where they're going, stuff like that.
That one's challenging to give a simple answer. I mean, there's a lot of steps and things you got to do. If it's your business, then I would say you probably want to read some business books, talk to some people. It's hard to just sit down and be like, okay, I'm just going to get clarity. There's a lot of steps that go into it. But if you could do something like, how about this? If you could do anything for a living right now, gun to your head, what would you do? I mean, I've done that with guys at events before. They're like, oh, I hate what I do. I want to do something else. We're like, well, what do you want to do? And they go, I don't know. And I go, all right, gun to your head. What the fuck are you going to do? And they're like, okay, I would do this. And we're like, all right, great. That's what you're going to do. So let's get a 1-year plan on how you can exit what you're doing now and start to do that. Clarity on, who you want to become. Same thing is like, you just got to write it down. You got to be honest with yourself, and then track it. What gets measured and gets tracked improves. If it's just this esoteric idea out there, like nothing ever happens. No one ever takes action on that.
Exactly.
So I think you write, you get clarity by writing things down, deciding who you want to be, and then having a path to follow. Now you might deviate from the path to be like, oh, actually, this isn't what I want. But if you're always just, flipping and flopping and flailing around, like that's just a lot of stress and anxiety and unhappiness. and you start to resent yourself because you can't stick with something. So again, I always go back to the power of writing things down. Like, hey, this is who I want to be. Like, picture that person, right? So maybe you pick somebody who's really well known and famous, so that you think, okay, that's the person I want to embody these characteristics. Or maybe it makes it more relatable if you pick someone you know. Hey, my friend John is super confident. He's always in great shape, and he's the life of the party. Everyone wants to be around him. He tells great stories. Those are the qualities that you want in your life. Okay, so how do I become better with people? How do I become a better storyteller? What do I need to do that? Now, order some books on those things. The Storyteller's Secret and Story Brand, whatever. Or order these books on Amazon. I start to read these things. He's in great shape. How does he do that? Fuck, he doesn't miss workouts. He doesn't cheat on his diet. Pretty simple, right? So then you start to just do these things. Like, you don't become this person overnight. You need to do these things, take these steps. How did John get to where he is? And you can't change everything overnight. Pick one thing, like, hey, when I'm in pretty good shape, I'm making money, but I'm horrible around people. Like, I sit there at a party, I can't talk to anyone. Or if there's more than 3 people at the dinner table, I'll just look down the whole time. That's my thing I want to change. Like, pick one thing that you want to change and work your way towards that. Then once that becomes a habit, that becomes who you are, then you can pick and start to change something else. And what I tell a lot of people is, a lot of times in self-development books, personal development books, self-help, you'll read, they'll try to get you to think your way into acting differently. But I tell people to act your way into thinking differently. So just decide who you want to be, and that's who you are going forward. Like, what I would do was, when I was this awkward, shy guy when I first moved to Cali, and I wasn't good at all this stuff, I'd have my theme song, I'd play my music on the way to where I was going. I'm going to walk into this room, and okay, I know Alex is going to be there, so I'm going to ask him how the podcast is going. I know Bedros is going to be there, so I'm going to talk to him about this. My friend Mike is there. He's an old school hip hop head, so we're going to talk about, like, I plan it out. Like, you're not going to leave this stuff to chance, right? You wouldn't leave your business to chance. You wouldn't say, oh, well, I'll just eat donuts and hope I get lean. Like, so certain things you don't take that focused action. You got to have focused action for whatever you want to do. So plan it out, go review it too. Like, so, you always hear stories about how Kobe Bryant reviewed the film footage of every single game. And Beyonce reviews concert footage of every concert, watches it back. What could I do better? What did I do really well? How can I improve upon it? So when you're trying to get better at something, like if your thing is, hey, I want to be the super connector, I want to learn how to work a room. Well, you don't actually have someone there videoing you probably most of the time. So what you need to do is, when you leave, play that tape through your head. Okay, what did I do well? I talked to Alex. I asked him the questions I want to ask him. I talked to Bedros. Oh, but then I got stuck with my friend Mike talking about hip hop for 2 hours, so I didn't engage anybody else, and I ignored this guy. I wasn't good at that. Then this guy was talking to me about something that made me feel uncomfortable, so I kind of devolved into my old self again. I was like, oh, socially awkward, my hands in my pockets. Like, play that back, and then again, write it down while it's fresh in your mind, because the next day you might not even remember. Write it down. How do I get better next time? And that's for any skill that you want to get better at. You got to do that stuff. I think it sounds so easy, right? Like, oh yeah, that's easy, but we just don't do it. We're like, what? I'll age like fine wine. I'll get better with age. Nah, I know people who are 70 who haven't changed since they were 20. Like, so you got to be always proactively trying to progress.
Intentionally, yeah, for sure. I love that, man. So the next question is motion. So what is one habit that you have that you think has contributed to your success?
Fitness every day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And going back to the map, right? So clarity. You mentioned things about writing down. One of my podcast guests shared this insight with me, and he told me, "What if God is deaf? Like, he can't hear, right? So everyone who's praying to him, asking for stuff, he can't hear, right? The only way that he can help you is by either watching you like move around, take action, moving towards your goals, and he can like, oh, okay, I see what he's doing. Let me go help him, right? Or writing your goals down, right? And that's why writing your goals down might work, because if you write it down, he'll actually be able to see it, and then he'll put the opportunities in front of you to actually take action. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. The next question is around measure. I know what you're going to say on this. But what do you think about measuring and tracking, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got covered as much as I can on that. Yeah, sure. It's super important. Super important.
Yeah. So, most people want money. And if you want money, you got to get those 4 things right: mindset, map, motion, measure, money. So, we're at the end, man, I really like everything that you're all about. I like, the content that you put out and everything, man. So if more people like what you're all about and, may want to know more about the strength training and everything that you're all about, where should they go?
Yeah, you can go to j.fit, JAY.fit. And then on Instagram, I'm at J Ferruggia, and you could listen to podcasts on iTunes.
Awesome. Yeah. So the podcast is called Renegade Radio. I actually didn't get to ask about that, man. That's crazy. Renegade Radio. It's on every platform, or where's your favorite platform?
Yep. iTunes.
iTunes. Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome,
yeah, it's on Spotify too.
Awesome. So thank you very much for being here, man.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. See you later.
All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms